Good morning and welcome to Pod Up with Shane Matthews. We're here Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. to 9 a.m., roughly around there. I'm joined today by a senior writer for FloridaGators.com, my buddy Chris Harry. Chris, welcome to the program.
Good morning, Shane. It's nice to drive up to Valdosta for a podcast. Yeah,
to Valdosta. Yes, we are coming to you live, not from the O'Connell Center, but Valdosta.
No.
Yeah, we're kind of out here as Tech City, Florida.
Tech City, Florida.
Which you, when
is that like a city, an actual city?
I'm not
Tech
sure.
City,
we're going to find out. That's what I was told. But I was like you. I Googled it last week, and it sent us to where did it send you?
I'm not even sure.
Like 10 hours away, right?
Oh yeah, it was Chicago. Yeah,
it was crazy.
1,060 miles away.
Yeah, 1,000 miles away. But anyway, obviously advertising and sponsorship opportunities are coming soon. We'll let you know where you can go for that. But we had many texts the last couple of days. You can text us at 352-353-7465. Well, let's start because I'm sure last night, I know you had a Christmas party that you had probably a good time.
A couple of Christmas parties.
So you probably did you get to see any of the NFL game with the Baltimore Ravens winning 42-21 over the New York Jets?
I wasn't too impressed by the final score when I did see it this morning because it was the Jets. But obviously, what's going on in Baltimore is one of the better stories in the NFL.
It's crazy. You know, Lamar Jackson goes 15 of 23 for 212 yards, 5 touchdowns. Completes 15 balls.
How many rushing yards did he have?
Well, he only had 86 on 8 carries, but he broke Michael Vick's single-season rushing record in the NFL, and I think he'll probably hold that record for a long time.
My goodness gracious, yeah.
I mean,
that's 10 yards a carry.
I'm one of those guys that I went on record, before the NFL season started, saying I wasn't sure Lamar Jackson could be an NFL quarterback because I can't remember how many games he started last year, but in those games, it was probably 8 to 10. He only threw for over 200 yards one time. And I was like, you're going to have to throw the football to play in that league. And, especially what do defense coordinators do all offseason? They break you down.
Right.
Well, let me tell you something. I was totally wrong. They have designed an offense for his skill set, so give the coaches credit. But he's the best athlete on the field, no matter who's out there. And he's definitely the MVP of the league.
Well, I mean, what you go back to, it just wasn't that long ago where you can't play quarterback like that.
Correct. Not in that league. You weren't supposed to.
Yeah, and as a person who grew up and pays close attention to the Washington teams, I mean, the closest thing, Robert Griffin had a season like that.
He did?
In 2012 as a rookie. Robert Griffin never learned how to protect his body, never learned how to not take. This guy doesn't take.
Well, that's a great point because
Robert Griffin literally, someone needed to teach him how to slide like a baseball player because he would get killed on his scrambles. And if you can, this guy doesn't take shots. I mean,
that's what's impressive, and that's why he's being able to play and running the football because he does know how to get down, and even when he's in traffic, he knows how to protect himself. And I think Alvin Kamara and Christian McCaffrey are outstanding doing that as well. But yeah,
except they're not quarterbers.
No, you're right, but they still can protect themselves. But it's a phenomenal story.
And Emmitt Smith was that way too.
Yes, he was.
I thought. Yeah.
Well, you're a Washington guy. You got to be happy about your Nationals.
Yes, I got to go.
You got the shirt on.
Yeah, my wife and daughter gave me a trip to the World Series for my birthday.
What game were you there?
I went to Game 5. They lost. That was the third game. It was the Sunday night game. So they took obviously the 2-0 lead in Houston, and then lost all 3 in Washington.
That's right.
And then I was at the third one, and it was the game that Scherzer was supposed to pitch, and they had to yank him for Joe Ross because he had the back problems. Of course, he came back 3 nights later in Game 7, and they won that. So yeah, that was a lot of fun.
Yeah, so
that was a lot of fun.
Before we get into what you know best, Gator basketball, I got to get your thoughts because I played for this organization. You're a huge Washington Redskins fan.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts? Who's the next coach going to be there? Do you like the quarterback they have right now? Or is this organization just going to lose as long as Dan Snyder's the owner?
Yes.
I agree with that.
To answer your last question, I was obviously covered the Bucks when Bruce Allen was there. So the organizational structure there is going to be a problem. It was, and you were there, when Vinny Serrato in charge when you were there.
Yes.
I always said Steve Spurrier did not have a good experience there, but I've always said that mean, he wrote in his book, they thought Bobby Beathard was going to be the GM. I always thought Tim Ruskell, I thought, had a chance to be the GM. He went up there to actually interview, and we found out he wasn't going to get the job, or he wasn't interviewing for the job he thought. He said, well, I can't even interview because this would be a lateral job. Steve always needed a guy to make decisions for him, personnel-wise. No, you can't bring in this guy. No, you can't bring in this coach, that kind of thing. So that's where it all started. And it just, I mean, Dan Snyder made a losing coach out of Joe Gibbs and Mike Shanahan.
Yeah, I mean, these are Hall of Fame coaches.
Right. And to Joe Gibbs and Mike Shanahan's credit, they got the teams to the playoffs, but I think it was in spite of a lot of things that go on there. I just don't think they could resurrect Vince Lombardi. I'm not sure it'll matter in terms of who's going to be the coach. I remember I thought Jay Gruden was going to be coach. 'Cause I think Jay back then when they hired him, because he was just looking for a job, and maybe this is a case where somebody just wants to have a job. The names that'll be thrown out, Eric Bieniemy is kind of like a hot name right now.
He doesn't call plays.
Yeah,
he has a title.
But I mean, he's the guy who would take a job.
Yeah, that's true.
He's a guy. I've seen if Pittsburgh fires Mike Tomlin. I don't know why Pittsburgh would fire Mike Tomlin, but he's been there a long time. But that's not a place that just arbitrarily fires coaches all the time. Obviously, they've had 3 in the last 55 years or something like that. But again, I don't think it matters who they hire as the personnel person. I don't think it matters who they hire as the coach. I just think, and you would know, you were there.
Yeah, it's a
toxic situation.
It really is, and we had Coach Spurrier on our other radio show, obviously doing podcasts and stuff, and he made a sarcastic comment, because we were talking about the Orange Bowl. That was his last game he coached as a Gator.
Mm-hmm. And last one he played in, right?
Yeah. And then he's like, I made a bad decision and decided to go coach the Washington Redskins. And in hindsight, it was
a bad decision.
It was a mess. And while we're on that subject right now, there's been a lot of talk around the country about the whole Dallas Cowboys situation. Jason Garrett's probably going to be fired. The Urban Meyers come up, Lincoln Riley, and then all of a sudden, now Dan Mullen's name's being thrown around. But the good thing about it is I think Dan's in here for the long haul, for the time being, even though his college quarterback is there. But at least he can walk right upstairs and talk to a guy who says he made a mistake by leaving a great university and working for a owner that wants to meddle all the time.
And I don't think Jerry Jones is as bad as Dan Snyder.
No,
because I think he has some football acumen. I think he does have some guys around him somewhat. Dan Snyder had no idea about football. I think, obviously he's an advertising guy, made all his money. But I mean, there's a reason Jason Garrett's been there as long as he has, because he'll put up with that. Bill Parcells went in there and didn't like dealing with that,
right?
And didn't have to.
Yeah.
I'm not going to stay here for this. So those are difficult jobs when you have you're the billionaire owners down in your office all the time telling you what you basically have to do. Just like I'm sure Dan Snyder told you got to play this Dwayne Haskins guy, or you have to draft Dwayne Haskins. Dwayne Haskins went to his son's high school.
I read that.
I mean, is that why did you draft him because he was the best quarterback at the time? I mean, he threw 50 touchdown passes last year. So he only played what? He only played 1 year of college football. Yeah. So I'm not sure. I think the Cowboys are in a much better position to succeed down the line because they have better players. But ultimately, Jerry Jones is going to have an impact on whoever is coaching that football team.
Again, you're watching Pod Up with Shane Matthews. This is my buddy Chris Harry, senior writer for FloridaGators.com. I know you're not a big golfer. Have you watched any of the President's Cup?
I haven't actually.
Oh, you haven't?
No, I haven't. I've watched.
Well, we're not playing real well. We're down 6.5 points to 3.5 points.
How's the captain doing?
The captain has played well.
Okay.
He's the only guy that's winning.
Really?
Yeah. The other guys are stinking it up. Tiger and Justin Thomas made a huge comeback yesterday, but I love golf. I'm not a huge team golf guy.
But you hate the captain.
I don't hate the captain.
You've always said you hate Tiger.
I don't hate Tiger. I just think probably the greatest golfer.
I've heard you say I hate Tiger Woods. I've heard you say that before.
I don't know if that's harsh. I don't know if I hate him. There's other players I like better than Tiger.
Okay.
And, it was great seeing him win the Masters last year, but the other guys just handed it to him. And Koepka.
So he didn't win it?
No, he did win.
Okay. But I'm saying he didn't earn that.
He didn't earn that.
Okay.
The other guys lost it.
Okay.
But anyway, If you want to get involved with our show, we just got a text, by the way. If you want to text us, it's 352-353-7465. Let me see if I can read this text. I got to get some glasses here. QB, this is Oliver from Alachua.
Oliver.
Love the show.
He's
Miss
nearby.
JC, but my question, I guess they don't like you, but they miss JC. But my question is, will Florida have a top 5 or top 10 recruiting class this year? And what's your score prediction for the Orange Bowl? And are y'all going to the game? Thank you. Well, Oliver, you got a lot of questions here. Okay, first of all, prediction of the Orange Bowl. I hadn't really given it much thought. I think Florida wins this game handily.
I think so.
I think they win by 20-plus points. I just think we're a better football team than them. I think we're excited that we're going.
Mm-hmm.
I think the coaching staff knows how important it is to get your 11th win. You would know this because you're a historian of Florida
Somewhat,
sports. I believe we've only had 15 10-win plus seasons in the history of the school.
Well,
Is that right?
I'll go. You've had 7 11-win seasons. So
we've had a 7. So we have a chance to have the 8th.
Have a chance.
And we played football
and had one in 2012. And I mean, I was here when they won 11 for the first time. It was a big deal.
Oh,
I mean, and the 11th, I believe that year was the I'm trying to think 11 1990 was the West Virginia game. And I mean, the 10th was the SEC championship that Terry Dean won in over Alabama. And then winning the 11th, killing an undefeated West Virginia team. Now the challenge Dan Mullen has, and I think he's going to be great at it, is trying to sell. This is a big game playing Virginia and everything, because Virginia's not that sexy,
Right.
not the kind of sexy team. But at the same time, they're certainly capable. If you go down there and turn the ball over and go down there and don't care, play like you did against Louisville when you already had trying to win 12. Remember how bad Florida was in that in that Sugar Bowl, and the fans weren't particularly excited about it. I think Dan Mullen is going to do a much better job of selling this game as something like a marker for this program to continue its trajectory, because I know a little bit about Virginia. I have a daughter in school there, so I've watched them.
They've had a tremendous year in their athletic program.
She was home for Thanksgiving. We watched Virginia Tech. That was a big deal to win that game.
But they won the national title.
Yes.
We talked about this the other day in basketball, and then don't they have a national title?
I think they won in lacrosse. Yeah, I think they won in lacrosse.
And maybe soccer.
Maybe women's soccer. I'm not 100% sure, but she teaches up there, and she's working on her PhD up there. So she teaches a lot of the athletes, and Bryce Perkins is a guy who is a problem.
He can cause a lot of problems.
There's routine games over the course of the season where he had 500 yards total offense, whether he's throwing for 300 and rushing for 180 or something like that. So he's obviously the X factor in the game. Their best player is this kid, Bryce Hall, who's going to be a first-round draft pick, who's lost to the season. I think he had an Achilles or an ankle injury or something like that. Virginia certainly is not in the class of Florida, doesn't have the talent of Florida, but if you go down there and mess around and stuff, you could and not take it seriously. Stuff can happen like that. I bring up that Louisville game, but I think Mullen has 100% pulse of his football team. Mm-hmm. I think the way he deals with them, the way he talks to them, the way he sells everything on a day-to-day basis just resonates with these guys, and I expect them to go down and play really well.
I do too. And the other question from Oliver was, do you think we have a top 5 or top 10 recruiting class? I definitely think we'll be in the top 10. Top 5, not sure right now, but we are. I just actually saw where Josh Braun, the big 4-star, 6'6", 335-pounder from Live Oak, Sewanee, who was committed to Georgia,
I believe, yeah.
Has committed to the Gators. And there were a bunch of decommits around the state the last couple of days that I think Florida's going to get. So I think it's because we're winning, Chris.
Maybe.
And because of that video.
Might be a fact. Okay.
So if people saw the new football standalone video, the locker room, all that stuff, this guy's been giving me grief about it since I've been bitching and complaining for the last 10 years.
No, I'm a person who says that's not why you think it's why you win or lose on Saturdays.
I did not say that.
But that's how I interpreted what you've been saying.
Yes. Again, this is Pod Up with Shane Matthews. This is Chris Harry from FloridaGators.com. We're going to take a break, not right now, but in a few minutes.
Okay.
We're going to talk Gator hoops because we have 3 games left before we get into conference play.
1, 2, 3, yes.
So let's do that, Taylor. Let's take a quick time out. We're going to come back. We'll talk Gator hoops. If you have any questions for Chris, please give us a text. That's 352-353-7465. You're listening to Pod Up with Shane Matthews. the number. It's 352-353-7465. All right, Chris, let's switch.
I want to advertise FloridaGators.com. I can cut you a
Yeah,
check.
absolutely. We'll get Scott Strickland to write a check.
Yeah.
So let's talk Gator hoops. People don't know you cover all Gator sports, but Gator basketball is your baby.
My baby.
We 6-3 right now.
Yes, the Gators are 6-3.
And we play Tuesday night against the Providence Friars in the Hall of Fame Invitational up in Brooklyn, New York. And you were just telling me a little bit about the Barclays Center. It's a triple header. But tell me what you just told me about when you pull into the arena.
I've not been there yet. This place cost $1 billion to build, and obviously they built it for the Nets and the Islanders. Excuse me, Nets, Islanders, and is there another team that plays in there? I'm trying to think.
I think that's it. They have these college basketball events.
Yeah. So $1 billion though, and they say that the teams drive the bus in, and it goes up an elevator and then rotates around for when it goes, so it can pull back out, so you're not doing 3-point turns as a bus or something. So that has nothing to do with the basketball game,
right?
But I
cool.
imagine it has a lot to do with the state of the art facility that it is, and there's I think there's going to be a unique uniform combination going to be worn by the Gators that day, if I understand myself.
Breaking news right here.
Maybe. But it'll be they're playing Providence, and again, it's a game. Florida's last game out wasn't very good. They played at Butler. This is an opportunity down the line. Providence was one of the teams that was picked to really contend for the Big East for the Big East title, and they're 5-5. I think they got one more game before then. I forget off the top of my head who they'll be playing. Anytime you have like a neutral site game against a high major opponent, which Providence is, and Providence certainly can turn around their season. They have some good players on the team. They're very well coached. Florida's got to win the game. Start building some confidence, because right now they're confidence-wise, culture-wise. Mike White went on a rant after the Butler game. Just about some things that need to be fixed with the team right now. Obviously, the fans aren't happy, and I can assure you that the coaches and players aren't happy with the 6-3 start on a team that's really more talented than that start. They've lost to some pretty good teams. Obviously, they lost to UConn, they lost to Florida State. And, of course, they lost to Butler, which was undefeated until they just got beat by UConn, I think, in a neutral site game up in New York just a couple nights ago. So they're not where they need to be, Shane, obviously, but they don't have to be where they need to be in December. And people don't want to hear that, but that's the reality of basketball. It's not football.
Well, you bring that up. I mean, we sit at 6-3. It's not like you've lost to, Sam Houston State or Evansville or Stephen F. Austin, the Lumberjacks, any of those teams. And there's really not a dominant team at this point in college basketball. So many number one teams have already lost.
I mean, 4. It's been 4. I mean, who was the other one that lost? Louisville lost to Texas Tech, and Texas Tech wasn't playing very well. But you Texas Tech was going to be okay. People in Lubbock, Texas, were saying, "What's wrong with Texas Tech?" After they were in the national championship. They got some things fixed. But you start crunching the numbers of the basketball team, and I mean. People say, "Well, I'm tired of hearing that it just comes down to shooting." Well, I mean, if you don't make baskets, you're not here.
Well, I talk about it all the time. Doesn't matter what sport you're playing, you got to score.
You got to score.
You got to beat the other team. You got to outscore them. And right now, we can't throw it in the ocean. And I've been on this rant that the O'Connell. I know we haven't shot the ball well on the road too. Mm-hmm. I think the rims in the O'Connell Center are too tight. You go to Cameron Indoor. They got the loosest rims in America. It's easy to shoot there. But having said that, okay.
The other teams come in and shoot okay.
Yeah, nobody's shooting great in the
one of the
Center.
Problems with I just listed the teams that they lost to FSU, UConn,
right.
Butler. No, I mean where the fans have a beef and they haven't looked well in any games specifically, except with the possible exception of Miami and the bulk of the game against Xavier. Now the last 6 minutes of the Xavier game weren't very good, but at some point you got to give Xavier some credit because they're a good team. and they got in a stance, as Mike White would say, and they dogged the last 5 or 6 minutes on defense and caused Florida some problems. And Florida, to their credit, still made the plays down the stretch to win. But I mean, against Marshall, against Towson, they didn't look very, and they certainly didn't look at home against Florida State in an environment that was sold out. That should have been the performance just didn't suit. Or wasn't up to what the fans expected. But I'm looking at some of these numbers right here, Shane. I mean, Trey Mann is a really, really talented player and a really talented scorer.
One of the best shooters on the team, right?
Well, I mean, he may be the best shooter on the team, and I say this stuff about practice. He's 4 of 19 from the 3-point line, 14 of 42 from the floor for the season. All through the summer, all through preseason practice, I'm on these shows and stuff, and I probably was on your show. I'm talking about how this team looked really good. The coaches thought they looked really good. The players thought they looked really good. But like anything else, you get into the season, and that's when the little things happen. Adversity hits. Minutes are starting to be distributed, and you don't know how guys are going to react to things. And little warts in tight games look like big deals. Not getting back on defense on a couple things against Butler, certainly late in the first half, just killed them. Players, worried about not getting a foul call by a ref. They've heard in practice all during preseason, you're not getting that call. Quit complaining about it. Quit worrying about it. Go on to the next play. A lot of these things reared themselves during the Billy Donovan era, and he broke them down a certain way. Mike White's figuring out how he has to break down. This is his most talented team. He has problems right now he's never had to deal with before.
Well, they were ranked preseason number 6, probably too high, but I think it's because, had the top transfer, Kerry Blackshear, coming to the Gators. You had 3 guys that played well towards the end of the year that were coming
really
back.
Well.
And then you add your 5 stars, Omar Payne. Well, Omar, I don't think he's a 5-star, but you got Scotty Lewis and Mann
and Trey,
and Glover. We just got a text from Jack from Orlando.
Jack.
He wants to know, do you think moving the 3-point line back has affected not only the Gators but most of teams in college basketball?
It's a popular question that comes up. I think it came up at the after the Butler game. I've talked to Noah Locke about it. He said it's not. He says it's not a problem. He's not shooting as well. But what are the numbers nationally? And I don't think they're that far off from what they have been before. So it is an adjustment to some degree. If you go out there, you stand back there from your normal 3-point shot, and go on a court, go to wherever you shoot, if you would go to your gym or whatever. It's a difference. But these guys shoot so much. I mean, the Noah Locks and Andrew Nemhards and Trey Manns, these guys are shooting 300 3-pointers a day. And it's not by lack of trying. Just like they missed a bunch of free throws in the Butler game. I mean, they go pressure free throw drills all the time. It's like, well, they never. Why don't they practice free throws? They practice free throws. Right. It's like if they, how come the Gators can't score in the red zone? Like I'm just saying arbitrarily something like that. They don't need to practice red zone. Did you practice red zone?
Yeah. Pretty much 3 or 4 days a week.
Yeah, all the stuff that people think they're not practicing, they're practicing all the time. But it's a really good question. I want to see where the numbers are as the season progresses, and certainly as they get into league play where teams know each other much better. But it's certainly a point to follow as the season goes on.
Another thing that a lot of Gator fans are concerned with, and I don't really follow it, but it's the pace of play that the Gators play with. Would you like to see them possibly maybe speed up? Because we do know that Mike White, when he was the head coach at Louisiana Tech, they got up and down the floor, but he mostly had, a bunch of 6'5" guys. Do you think we need to speed the pace of play up with the talent that we have?
Okay, well, who are the two key, biggest, most important players on the team?
Well, it's your point guard.
Okay, and who else?
I guess your big guy.
Okay, and are they fast?
No, Nemhard is not, but Glover brings a different speed to the game.
Okay, well, Kerry Blackshear's not particularly fast.
No.
And not wildly athletic.
And he doesn't play above the rim either.
And Andrew Nemhard's not particularly fast either.
No, not at all.
He's a pace player. I mean, the NBA scouts like him because he's a pace player and because of his size and his length. So I don't know how you're going to play much faster than that. Now, Quez Glover, you want to put him in as a change of pace guy? Okay, fine. Quez Glover right now has 4 assists and 12 turnovers.
That's not good.
That's not good for a point guard. So it's stuff that comes up in practice every day. Turnovers yesterday in practice were a problem, and they were. I can tell you that they are working on these things, but I don't know the pace of play is particularly a problem. And against Butler, I mean, if you should take advantage of, if you have numbers, you should take advantage of that. And I don't know if Florida has all the time because maybe they're so locked into doing what they're supposed to do. I think some things need to be freed up a little bit. They need to play a little freer with their minds, and I think the coaches are encouraging that to some degree. But they still have to do what they're coached to do, and a lot of these guys aren't doing what they're coached to do, and that's culture, that's chemistry, but it's certainly stuff that can be fixed. And again, what we saw during the summer and during the preseason looked pretty damn good, but it's a lot different when a Florida State team rolls out and plays a certain kind of defense against you. How are you going to adjust to it? How are you going to shots aren't falling? Are you hanging your head? And there is a lot of that going on with this basketball team right now, but I believe it is subject to change. They just have to figure out a way to change.
Do you think it's more a confidence thing right now? If they do see some shots fall, that they'll play with a little more confidence?
I just point excuse me to the tournament in Charleston, where shots were falling.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I think they went to that tournament shooting, off the top of my head, I'm going 34% from the floor and 21 from three, and came out of that tournament in those 3 games. In those 3 games in the tournament, shot 48% from the floor and almost 41 from three, and obviously won 3 games. They're capable of making shots. They're not making them now. They got to make them.
So we got 3 games before we start conference play against on January 4th against Alabama. Tuesday night against Providence and New York. Then Saturday it's the Orange Bowl Classic against a very good Utah State team.
Yeah,
and then you come home against Long Beach State. Utah State is going to be a tough game. I mean, I don't want to look ahead.
No,
but we need to win the Providence game.
Yeah, but I mean, here's Utah State. That's a team. I mean, why are they scheduling that game? So that's you got to play.
Well,
the
Orange Bowl did that, right?
Yeah, the Orange Bowl did. Yeah, always playing it or have for whatever 15 years or something. But that's a difficult game. If you're going to play, a team like down in the Sunrise, it's good. Play one with a name recognition. People think Utah State, they're good, man. They won 25 games last year.
They're a ranked team, right?
They're I think they're ranked 14th right now. Yeah. So
who's Florida State playing in the
USF?
Okay.
USF's okay.
It would have been nice if we would have had USF.
maybe flip it around a little bit, yeah. But there's a couple ways to look at it, obviously. So then that's a difficult game, okay? But it's also it's a neutral site game against a ranked opponent that's probably a top 50 Ken Palm team. So you're talking about an opportunity for a quad one, which looks great down the line. For the ultimate goal is to build a resume for the postseason, obviously. And this year there's opportunities for the postseason to play in Tampa. You got to start. You have opportunities to play good teams like a Utah State. The crowd won't be great down there, so there'll be there'll be some adversity in that game. But again, that's 2 games down the line. Providence is one that
and that's going to be that's a road game for us, no matter where it's being played.
Absolutely, it's a road game. Yeah. Yes.
Because there's a lot of Providence folks in New York City.
That's right. They actually have a player. I spoke to when I was at a wedding over the summer that they got the Donovans and Matt McCall and some other old coaches were from here were at the wedding. Matt McCall had a player at UMass last year who was a grad transfer for Providence, who was his leading scorer. Guy scored I think he scored 42 against LaSalle last year, and he's a grad transfer. Providence will have some good players. They're fine. They're trying to find their chemistry right now too. But if Florida can somehow put together a little 3-game banger here and get a little momentum going into the Southeastern Conference season, get a little confidence, get a little chemistry, get a little feel for each other, and maybe figure some things out. But this is a tough time of year to do it with Christmas. Billy Diamond used to hate the games around Christmas. People looking forward to going home. I mean, if you recall, Florida lost some bad games around this time. I mean, they lost to South Alabama right before the last game before Christmas break. They lost to Jacksonville right before Christmas break when Billy was here. They lost to Kansas State, I think, on the road. There's a history of that, but that's because it's just hard to keep guys focused this time of year. And Florida has some tough games to have to navigate that.
Yeah. So you talked about trying to get some momentum the next 3 games. In your mind, what needs to happen? Is it one player that needs to take charge? Is it Scotty Lewis? Is it Trey Mann need to come out of his slump? If you had to pick one thing to get this team going, What do you think it needs to be?
I asked one of the coaches after the Butler game, for example. I said, Kerry Blackshear took 5 3-pointers in the first half in that game. I think he was and finished 1 for 6. I think. And I said, does Kerry Blackshear need to take fewer 3-pointers? They said no, he needs to make some of them. It's the same thing can be said for Trey Mann and for Noah Locke was actually decent up there. I think they were 15 of 22 inside 3, 6 of 26 from 3. You can't shoot 22% from 3-point range. At least get it to 32 or 33 and give yourself a chance. And then the more you hit some threes, then more things are going to happen for you inside, obviously.
Yeah, and I've had people ask me, "Do you think this team's a tournament team?" I definitely think
this
they
team's
do.
a tournament team.
And that's what people don't understand. Basketball is such a long season. Like you said, you go through these growing pains. But bottom line, when they have their preseason meeting, the number one goal written on the board is make the NCAA tournament because anything can happen once you get there.
Yes, and I mean these guys we know what they're capable of doing because you see it every day. And again, I go back to the Charleston tournament. And a couple years ago, I want to say it was 2017, the year Florida made the Elite Eight run. That team was pretty damn talented. It also had some older guys. Devin Robinson had been through that was his junior year. He'd been to an NIT same with Chris Chioza, and they didn't like that. They'd had a losing record as freshmen. Billy Diamond's last year. The coach leaves. Mike White comes in. They go to an NIT. They'd grown up a little bit. And they were frustrated and did something about it. These guys need to get to that point a little bit. Certainly, like these 3 sophomores need to get to where they're all right. Put your fist down. Let's change some things. And the Noah Locke and Andrew Nemhart are loud voices in the locker room. So is Kerry Blackshear. It's just these guys need to find something in their locker room that translates onto the court and just kind of evolve a little more together because how they're playing right now isn't good enough. And they understand that. They hear it. They talk about it internally, and it has to change.
We have another tweet here for you, Chris, from Jim in Palatka. He wants to know what's going on with Gorjak Gak.
Gorjak Gak. Well, he was cleared to play for the last game. When Gorjak got in the game against UConn, Akuk. Have you seen that guy from UConn? Did you see him the other day? I
didn't see him in that game.
Oh my! No, whatever the last game they played, I think it was the Butler game. I think he blocked the first 3 shots that Butler took or something. He's a bouncy guy, and it wasn't a good match for Gorjak. But they'll determine how much he'll play. I mean, he's been clear. He's been clear to play. If you're in a half court situation, if Kerry Blackshear's in foul trouble, depending on if Dante Bassett is healthy or not, we'll determine what Gorjak Gak's minutes are. But he had an unfortunate turn in the summer because he was looking pretty good in the summer. One of their better summer project players that just got better, and you could see it. And then he got that real fluky kind of shoulder injury, and he's just been really unlucky when it comes to injury. So we haven't seen much of him, haven't seen the best of him, and we'll just see what happens. I can't say anything definitively about what his role might be. All
right, well, we're going to take our last time out of the show. You're listening to Pod Up with Shane Matthews. We'll be right back after these messages.
Pod Up. Pod Up.
Welcome back to Pod Up. We're coming to you live every Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. to 9 a.m. I'm Shane Matthews. This is my guest today, Chris Harry, senior writer for the FloridaGators.com. We're going to talk a little college football right now, Chris. Obviously, we know who the Final Four teams are. I want to go ahead and get your pick right now, in case we don't talk to you before then. Who do you think wins the national title?
Louisiana State University.
I do too. Have you, you've been covering sports at all levels for many, many years. I personally think the year that Joe Burrow has had at the quarterback position is the best I've ever seen in college football. Agree or disagree?
Well, I'm just saying this, especially to go from what they were last year.
That transformation is a whole nother story.
Yeah,
I'm just saying from a number standpoint, the teams they've beaten, how they've beaten them,
remarkable.
It's unbelievable.
I mean, it's people were telling me, well, God, if the Gators had Zuniga and if the Gators had John Grenard, it would have been. I don't know how much different it would have been.
Yeah.
I mean, that was a really tough environment there. I was obviously there that night, and Florida didn't do a whole lot to stop that guy, and that was a really good defense that went up and down the field.
I think he had 3 incomplete passes that night.
And they had 200. They had 280 some yards rushing or something in the game also. So they're lethal. He's obviously on point. He's I guess confident is a pretty accurate word to say. That guy.
He reminds me of, and it, people want to do comparisons, but his composure and just the way he sits in the pocket looks like Tom Brady. But he has mobility and his accuracy. He's extremely accurate. And what Joe Brady has done, bringing a lot of that NFL system to LSU, I think.
How hard is that to do? To just parachute in, and all of a sudden I'm bringing. I mean, he's obviously bringing in basically Sean Payton's offense.
Yes.
Right?
What he does different. To answer your question, I don't think it's hard at all if you know how to call it, when to call it, and how to teach it. Think of Steve Spurrier. He did it in 1 year. He transformed the entire offense.
But I want an NFL offense that he brought.
No, but what Joe Brady's doing is it's pretty simple. They run a bunch of different formations, but the same plays out of those formations. But everybody talks about the spread you from sideline to sideline. Well, if you watch LSU, they condense the formations, a lot of bunch squeeze type deals, I call them, like the Saints do,
and then spread it, right?
Yeah, and then there's just
chaos.
There's more field you got to cover. But he's smart. He knows where to go with the football. They do a lot of 5-man protection, which you have to trust your quarterback to know who his height is. They have great weapons around him. Good gracious. The running back is outstanding. So Joe Brady is probably the most important hire of the year. Give Ogeron a lot of credit for that. But they're fun to watch. I think it's going to be LSU versus Clemson in New Orleans, and it'll be a heck of a game.
Are you on the train, the no respect train that Dabo Sweeney likes to play, or it is a byproduct of what their league was?
Oh, the ACC is horrible. Absolutely horrible. But give them credit; they didn't lose the game to North Carolina. They beat
the hell out of everybody but North Carolina.
Right,
right?
And people forget there was over a minute and a half, I think, in that game. That even if North Carolina gets that 2-point conversion, who says Trevor Lawrence doesn't take them down to kick a field goal to win it? Yeah. Speaking of Trevor Lawrence, there's a lot of talk now. He's the only non-transfer quarterback in the Final Four.
Yeah, I saw that.
There's a lot of talk now that people think he should sit out his junior year and protect himself and get ready for the NFL. I think it's ridiculous.
Is that the best thing for a quarterback to get him ready for the National Football League?
No.
Would the NFL look kindly on that? Or
I don't think so at all. I think he's a good enough player, smart enough, protects himself pretty well. He's a great talent. I think it's ridiculous that people even talk about that. But I want to get your thoughts about the transfer portal. I saw the other day there's over 40 quarterbacks right now in the college transfer portal. Obviously, some of the big names out of the SEC. Jake Bentley is now going to play at Utah, which kind of a weird fit, but they need a quarterback. And then Joey Gatewood, who's a kid that I trained a couple of times, who I thought was a perfect fit for Gus Malzahn's system. He is Cam Newton, size, all that. Never gave him a chance for whatever reason. He's going to be at Kentucky now. What is your thought about the transfer portal?
Well, I just think that there needed to be some kind of, and obviously it evolved over the years, there needed to be some kind of outlet for players to move if there's circumstances. I mean, I know it's cliche to say, but I mean, coaches can come and go as they please. I have no problem. I think you ought to be allowed one over the course of your career. The way the transfer portal was kind of created as a loophole, and it's kind of become this giant kind of thing. It kind of came out. I don't even know if it's called the transfer portal, or maybe somebody just came up with it and called it, and it works. Yeah. It's kind of cool. I like it for basketball. In basketball season, it's like 800 kids going.
Yeah, they've been transferring for years in basketball.
Yeah, but what I don't like is the whole the arbitrariness of the NCAA's rulings. I mean, it makes me sick to my stomach when you hear kids, and there really is a kid, like, I don't know, what the kid who left Virginia Tech to go, or was it Illinois to Virginia Tech or whatever?
Somewhere Illinois had a kid with a dying grandparent or whatever.
That's right. And he was 5 miles out of the restricted area. Yes. But Justin Fields can go and play right away for Ohio State. I mean, just let them go. Give them one transfer where they don't have to sit out. They got to meet certain standards on it, and that's that. John Gruden used to say, "Man, just do what's right, okay? Just do what's right," and that to me seems right.
I like the transfer portal, but I also look at it from a coach's standpoint. I feel like now it's a way that they can cut kids. I mean, really? think about it. You know, like, let's say Dan Mullen. You know, all these kids on this roster are not his recruits. So if you're buried on the depth chart and you have your exit meeting, I'm not saying that coach is going to push you out the door, but he can say, look, we got so-and-so, so-and-so, so-and-so ahead of you. May not be a great opportunity. You may want to look elsewhere. We will help you.
That's being truthful.
But it's a way that they can take that scholarship, because, you know, those are year to year. Mm-hmm. It's a way that they can push him out the door but not have the negative publicity. Because if you're from Gainesville High School and we cut you or take your scholarship, well, you're never going to be able to recruit a kid from that school again. Mm-hmm. Because look what that coach did. So I think it's good for the player, and I also think it's good for the coaches.
Well, I look at what happened with the basketball team. I mean, they had 5 guys transfer last year,
right?
And you can, the kind of sequence you kind of just laid out there was what, look, these guys are coming in, and, you know, basically you had that conversation with DeAndre Ballard, had that conversation with Michael Okoro and those guys, and they ended up, now some of those guys got instant waivers, some of them didn't. Michael Okoro had a triple-double the other day.
Who's he playing for now?
UNC Wilmington.
Oh, they
he had a triple-double against a Division II team, I think, in a game. Yeah. And DeAndre Ballard at South Alabama, he did not get a waiver. Isaiah Stokes went to Memphis, he did not get a waiver. Chase Johnson did get a waiver, he's playing for Dayton. And Keystone obviously is at Miami. So that's 5 guys, yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So it's
he played his first game.
Speaking of a triple double, whatever, did you see the young man in the NAIA the other day that scored 100 points?
Yes, Culver's Chris Culver's older brother.
Oh,
the guy,
really?
Is that his name? Jared
Culver? The guy from
not Jared Culver.
Texas Tech?
Yeah, that was his older brother. Did that?
Yeah, they scored 124 points. He
had 100. He had 100 of them. Yeah,
that is crazy.
Al Pinkins, the assistant coach at Florida, recruited Culver to Texas Tech, and so he knew that kid. Yes,
okay.
100 points.
We only have a few minutes left.
Yes.
I just want to get your thoughts. Steve Adazio, former Gator assistant, who, you know, I think he was at BC for 7. So he went to a bowl game every year but 1 year. What is BC thinking? I mean, I thought he was a good fit for BC.
I mean, what is BC standard? I'm going to a bowl game. I mean, what else is BC going to do? I mean,
right.
You're not. It's not Doug Flutie
exactly.
anymore, right? I know. Actually, having said that, when Matt Ryan was there, they went to a couple ACC championship games, right?
Maybe
I think because I was down in Tampa when they were playing in Tampa. Yeah. So I guess they still harbor some ambition in terms of that, but. You asked Steve Dazio off air. He's going to Colorado State. It seems kind of weird fit to me.
Very weird fit.
Weird fit to me, yeah.
And then Mike Bobo, another former Georgia quarterback who was a teammate of Will Muschamp. We all know Will's issues with offensive coordinators. He changes them yearly. Do you think he's a good fit? Do you think Will let him? Now, he's not a wide open guy. We all know that. But do you think Will let him just run the offense?
No.
I agree.
Go to the next question.
Next question. Yeah.
No, I mean, what you got to go with the track record, right?
Yes.
I mean, how many offensive coordinators has he had?
A bunch.
Yeah.
A bunch.
Yeah, and I think we know what Will Muschamp's teams are.
Yeah.
now. I mean, and we know what they're capable of not doing. We know that they can play really good games, and we know that a lot of times they're gonna lay eggs when they need to move the football.
Very true.
Okay.
Well, we want to, before we get out of here, we want to wish the UF volleyball team. They're in the Sweet 16. They play tonight against Minnesota. Wish them a lot of good luck tonight. I want to thank my man Chris Harry for joining Pod Up.
Thank you.
Remember, check his workout, FloridaGators.com. What's your Twitter handle?
At Gators Chris.
Good work here, my man. We appreciate it. We'll see you back here Monday on Pod Up.